Let's now invite Evan Siegfried. He is a Republican strategist and a political commentator, helping us through with what can we expect where Canada and U.S. relationships is concerned. So a lot is at stake, Evan. Thanks for joining us, though. There's so much to talk about between these two countries, largest trading partners, as we know. And yes, there are tensions on this side of the border with the fact that Donald Trump has won the elections. What could the next term really look like? Your thoughts on what can we expect between this very important relationship going forward?
Well, I don't think you're going to see as close of a bromance as we saw in the first Trump term between Prime Minister Trudeau and President Trump. However, both President Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau know that the United States and Canada are integral allies and very close in the world. And for the United States, they're one of our closest 5 allies. That's the first thing. And I think that Donald Trump knows that the threats of tariffs certainly scare economists across the world. But I think people need to understand that they've been misreading Donald Trump when he talks about tariffs. Tariffs are awful. I'm an old school Republican who believes that they cause economic and political chaos as well as increase the cost of living because the cost of the tariff is always passed on to the consumer. If there were tariffs levied on Canadian goods in the United States, the Canadian companies are not paying for that. The consumer here in the United States is. So I think that when people look at Donald Trump and hear these threats, they get very panicked, but they don't realize they're threats. It's sort of speak softly and carry a big stick because you never know when you're going to need to hit somebody over the head with it. And he is threatening to hit Canada over the head with a big stick if Canada or Canadian companies don't play in what he views a more fair way. Additionally, one of the things to look at to give you an early gauge of U.S.-Canada relations will be where does Donald Trump take his first foreign trip as president when he assumes the office on January 20th. Historically, presidents normally do Canada or Mexico because it's an ally, it's on the North American continent, and they are big trading partners. President Trump did not make Canada his first foreign trip in his first term, but I think it would send a strong signal that it's going to be business as usual, but with some tweaks if he were to go to Canada and visit Prime Minister Trudeau first.
That'll be interesting to see for sure. We will come back to, of course, more on this, but I want to rewind a little bit and talk about the word you used, bromance, between Trudeau and Trump. I don't think that's happening at all, like you said, because Donald Trump, as we know, has named Trudeau quite a few things. He's called him weak. He's called him dishonest. Trump has called Trudeau double-faced. So, yeah, by the looks of it, it just sounds like a challenging relationship. And also looking at the fact, Evan, you never know. I mean, the administration in Canada, too, can go through a quick change. You know, we're in a minority parliament. We can have elections anytime. So, yeah, who knows?
Well, there's good news for Prime Minister Trudeau, or if you have a new government, whomever your incoming prime minister is. Donald Trump, yes, he does hold people who have gone against him in a certain I want to get revenge on them position. But he's also very happy if they turn around and say, you know what, I like you on second thought. And there's proof in the pudding because, look, we have Vice President-elect Vance now. Vice President-elect Vance was a harsh Trump critic in 2016, but he turned around and evolved. And he is now the Vice President-elect of the United States. So if that's not forgiveness on Donald Trump's part, I don't know what is. So it's certainly you can have as Prime Minister Trudeau or anybody else within the Canadian government use flattery and say, here are the things I like about Donald Trump. And personally, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I've been very vocally outspoken against his policies and some of his behaviors that I think are inappropriate and unacceptable. However, there are things that I've seen Donald Trump do on a policy level that I think are very good. And, you know, you have to look at things not as a black and white thing, but as a shades of gray thing. Find the areas in which you agree and concentrate on those, because it's like any friendship that you and I could have with someone. There are going to be places you don't agree with them, and there are places that you agree, and your relationship is built on the common agreement.
Yeah, I mean, there is no choice, right? We know that world leaders have to work with Donald Trump now. They have to work with him as the president of the United States. We know some 70-odd leaders congratulated him after the results came out and he is the president-elect. So yes, there is work to be done, and they will be sitting across the table. But I want to talk to you about something else too, which is very important because, of course, tariffs is one thing, and that could be in the immediate. But the other big question mark lingering around is what would happen in 2026 with NAFTA? That involves, of course, course, as we know, US, Canada, and Mexico. And our Deputy Prime Minister, Finance Minister, had to make several rounds to the United States while she was negotiating the NAFTA the previous time. So that is something that we have to keep a lookout for as well.
Yes. Well, any treaty has to be authorized by the United States Senate as well. So that is a very important thing here. The Congress plays a role in our treaties in the United States under the Constitution. So Donald Trump could go and ask for all of these concessions or get whatever he wants from Canada, from Mexico, and other trading partners, but it's still subject to lawmaker review. So it's going to be difficult. But I think at the same time, yes, taking multiple trips to the United States to talk about areas of disagreement, I think that's a healthy thing. That's pretty standard in negotiating any sort of deal between two countries. Bilateral, trilateral, or multilateral deals often involve intense points of disagreement and finding a way to move forward through them. So that's, while it can be of concern in the lead up, I think at the end of the day, there will be a fair and equitable deal reached in 2026.
Yeah, another round of interesting conversations for sure. Evan Siegfried, Republican strategist and political commentator. Appreciate your time, Evan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Akshay.